The continued economic malaise, retreat of foreign capital, deterioration of the real estate market, and burgeoning local debt all contribute to an increasingly bleak economic outlook for China. In response, the Chinese authorities have issued bonds on an unprecedented scale. First, on October 24th, the National People's Congress approved a plan to issue an additional 1 trillion yuan in government bonds. This sum is to be dispersed interest-free over 2 years to local governments, with 500 billion yuan allocated for the current year and the remainder for the following year. 2. Special refinancing bonds have been issued, intended to repay existing local government debts, including overdue corporate accounts, by 24 provinces as of October 31, 2023, with a scale exceeding 1 trillion yuan. A pre-allocation of the 2024 local government bond quota is expected to reach an upper limit of 432 billion yuan for general bonds and 2.28 trillion yuan for special bonds. The combined total of the above exceeds 4 trillion yuan, representing an unprecedented effort. What exactly is the magnitude of China's local government debt? An estimate from Goldman Sachs in July of this year places the cumulative debt at a staggering 94 trillion yuan, including liabilities not accounted for on balance sheets. Economic analysts predict an inevitable explosion of local government debt in China, a development expected to send shockwaves through the economy. Against this backdrop, further bond issuance by the Chinese government is viewed as ineffective. Lu Yuanxing, a former marketing executive at a Chinese company and now a political and economic analyst based in the United States, argues that the increased issuance of government bonds actually drives foreign investors to accelerate their withdrawal from China. Lu said, "Who would want to continue investing on a debtor already heavily in debt and struggling to repay? The Chinese government is now in such a position. Without massive currency printing to aid local governments in repaying debt, many urban investment companies and perhaps the local governments themselves will default, significantly impacting government credit and social stability. In fact, the Chinese government's printing of money and issuing of additional government bonds already indicates its insolvency and the necessity to continually borrow to pay off debts, diminishing the market's allure for foreign investment." In tandem with the Chinese government's bond issuance, Bloomberg has revealed a rare occurrence: Xi Jinping's personal inspection of the People's Bank of China, the central bank, and the State Administration of Foreign Exchange on October 24th, marking his first visit in over a decade. Bloomberg, citing insiders, reports that Xi's visit aimed to gain a better understanding of the $3 trillion in foreign exchange reserves. Traditionally, there has been no public record of the highest party and government leaders inspecting the central bank since the founding of the People's Republic of China. Xi Jinping's inspection of these two major financial institutions has drawn intense international focus. Dr. Chang Xiaonong, a specialist in Chinese affairs, writes that Xi's concurrent visit to the State Administration of Foreign Exchange and the People's Bank of China comes at a time when there are dwindling forex reserves to support the yuan's exchange rate, which is now expected to depreciate. At such a juncture, Xi must concern himself with how far the exchange rate might fall and the potential depletion of forex reserves. Indeed, the foreign exchange reserves managed by China's State Administration of Foreign Exchange have been rapidly depleting. Since August of this year, signs of shrinkage have been evident, with a reduction of $44.3 billion in August and another $45 billion in September, with predictions of further contractions in October. Dr. Cheng indicated that in recent years, as numerous foreign enterprises have continuously withdrawn from China, the outlook on the yuan's exchange rate has become bearish, putting exceptional pressure on the country's shrinking foreign exchange reserves. The strengthened foreign exchange controls by the Chinese Communist Party have made it increasingly difficult for foreign companies to withdraw capital. For instance, Taiwanese businesses have encountered frequent blockages in official channels during repatriation of funds, forcing them to turn to underground financial networks. Previously, the cost of utilizing such networks was around 3%, which was considered normal. However, the cost of transferring funds through underground channels has now skyrocketed to over 10%. Not only has the difficulty of capital withdrawal increased, but the amount of capital that can be withdrawn has decreased, and the expenses for withdrawal have risen rapidly. As foreign enterprises have increasingly left China over the years, the Chinese Communist Party has seemingly become more indifferent to its financial reputation internationally. This indifference is reflected in the recent default on foreign debts by major real estate players like Evergrande and Country Garden. This, in turn, illustrates the overall financial crisis looming over China. The current turbulence in China's financial situation is particularly endangered by three types of defaults. First, defaults by real estate giants. The real estate sector has been hit by a series of defaults, with dozens of large property developers collapsing. The total liabilities of the 15 most indebted real estate companies in China amount to over 13 trillion yuan, equivalent to 10% of China's GDP, and surpassing the GDP of Guangdong, China's largest economic province. For example, Evergrande is indebted for 2.4 trillion yuan with negative net assets of 600 billion yuan. Country Garden owes 1.4 trillion yuan, and Vanke 1.35 trillion yuan. A collective default by these companies could lead to unimaginable consequences. 2. Local debt, particularly hidden local government debt. The credit rating agency China Chengxin International estimates that by the end of 2022, the scale of hidden local government debt was between 52 to 58 trillion yuan. 3. Defaults by small and medium-sized banks. With the real estate sector in crisis and local debts on the brink, the banking system is exposed to these risks, which would likely lead to a buildup of non-performing loans. If non-performing loans accumulate excessively, the risk would first be transmitted to small and medium-sized commercial banks. The sharp increase in China's debt has reached a level that the Chinese government can no longer ignore. At a Chinese Communist Party Politburo meeting in July this year, it was proposed for the first time to effectively prevent and resolve the risk of local debt and to formulate and implement a comprehensive debt resolution scheme. In August, the Chinese State Council sent work teams to more than 10 provinces with the most severe financial situations to audit the books. Overseas commentator Li Hengqing has said that the financial risks in China are ostensibly due to massive debts, from the central to local governments, corporate debts, and household debts, with risks accumulating on all fronts and of great magnitude. The most apparent risk is the overall decline in real estate prices, which could devalue many financial assets and potentially result in bad debts, leading to a worsening systemic financial risk and even the collapse of the banking system. This, however, is just the surface. The deeper danger lies in the opacity of China's financial decision-making system. He believes that the inconsistency and sudden changes in the Chinese Communist Party's policies have left lower-level officials at a loss, which is a fundamental problem. Yet no one is willing to tackle these fundamental issues as they are arduous and unappreciated efforts. Thus, for the Chinese authorities to resolve financial risks is virtually an impossible fantasy. Many observers think that the Beijing authorities are at a loss in the face of various financial crises. Xinhua News Agency of the Chinese Communist Party reported that from October 30th to the 31st, the Central Financial Work Conference was held behind closed doors in Beijing. President Xi Jinping delivered a speech, and the other 6 members of the Politburo Standing Committee attended the meeting. It was proposed during the conference that the CCP will strengthen its leadership over China's financial industry, which amounts to $61 trillion, and intensify efforts to reduce local government debt risks. The conference also highlighted that China would, quote, persist in treating risk prevention and control as the eternal theme of financial work, acknowledging that, quote, we must be clear-eyed that various contradictions and problems in the financial sector are interwoven and influencing each other, some of which are still quite prominent, with many hidden risks still present in economic and financial areas. According to initial counts, the term risk was mentioned at least 19 times in Xinhua's report. In response to this financial conference, a knowledgeable source cited by Bloomberg revealed that Chinese officials, under the leadership of Xi Jinping, are preparing to concentrate their efforts on resolving financial risks, including the crisis in China's real estate market and the rising debt problems of local government financing platforms. Economist Si Ling told Radio Free Asia that China is in a phase of economic downturn, suggesting that financial regulation should be relaxed rather than tightened. However, Xi Jinping's emphasis on absolute party control during the meeting could lead to a backlash if a comprehensive supervisory culture is established in the financial sector. Si Ling said, the contradiction with the Chinese government is that Xi Jinping treats finance as a tool for maintaining political, economic, and social security, essentially instrumentalizing financial regulation. This completely mistaken positioning results in the more they regulate finance, the more vitality is lost. This leads to foreign and private enterprises, which once sought to expand aggressively in China, to now think twice. Dr. Qiu Wanjun, an associate professor of finance at Northeastern University in the United States, commented that if 1 trillion yuan in national bonds is used in the same grandiose yet imprudent manner as in the past, it could be all harm and no benefit to the long-term Chinese economy. This action is taken because the risk of economic downturn in China is particularly high, and the 3 engines of economic growth, investment, consumption, and export are showing signs of stalling, forcing the central government to take measures to rescue the economy. Moreover, after the slowdown in China's overall economic strength, the returns on investment supported by local governments through financing platforms have sharply declined, leading to overwhelming debt and immense fiscal pressures that are significant enough to affect China's economic growth and financial stability. Taiwanese financial expert Huang Shicheng pointed out that the immediate crisis facing China's financial system is the real estate sector. Since last year, large real estate companies like Evergrande, Country Garden, and Sunac China have experienced successive defaults. This could impact some of the Chinese banking systems and even the local debt systems. The real estate downturn may drive an economic decline and even trigger a broader crisis and storm in the entire financial industry. He noted that the second issue confronting the CCP is capital flight. From last year to the present, officials have continuously tried to stop the devaluation of the renminbi, but so far it seems to be unsuccessful. The situation of capital flight continues, with foreign investors also reluctant to enter. With China's economy declining without new industry drivers, coupled with a downward trend in the real estate sector, the possibility of a financial crisis erupting in China is ever present.